Hey, really happy to be here. Um, this is take two on my presentations. Let's see if this makes the cut. Um, I'm here to talk about the 30-day map challenge, which will be the topic covering the practical cartography day. And I like to call it the social mapping experiment. I'm happy to be here talking and to tell you more about it. So my name is Topi. I live in Helsinki, Finland. I spent way too much time on Twitter posting maps. You can see some of my own work on my website, lastname.org. Um, and there I write blog posts and do mapping stuff. I'm a GIS consultant slash cartographer or whatever you like to call me. I work at a company called Gispo, which has been around for almost 10 years. We're 15 people, and we're focused on open source, so FOSS4G, open source geospatial solutions and open data. We do quite a bit of training, like QGIS training and that sort of things. Then pure development. Uh, but as you can probably imagine, I get to do a lot of like the cartography things, data analysis things as part of my 9 to 5 job. Yeah, that was the corporate side of things. Then on to my main topic, the 30-day map challenge. So the story behind 30-day map challenge is goes so that in 2019 I was sitting in a bus on my way to work. I was browsing Twitter. Then I saw some posts from Inktober, people participating in Inktober. And Inktober is like this uh, challenge for artists, where there are 30 days there are in October there's a theme for each day in October. It's like vague theme, and then the artists can interpret it in a way they want, and then draw something or paint something based on that theme. Then post it to social media, and then people can admire what kind of things others have been doing. So I thought, whoa, that's a great idea. Why not doing it in a geospatial context? So then I also came across Tidy Tuesday, which is for the art community, a data analysis challenge where that happens on every Tuesday around the year, where they analyze and visualize a data set, a common data set. So um, so I drafted some ideas on how it could work, what could be the themes, and then posted the themes to Twitter, and things got I wouldn't say out of hands immediately, but got way more popularity than I expected. And people participated already 2019 really actively. So the basic rules were that interpret the theme the way you want, then make a map out of the theme, and then post it to the internet using the hashtag. And just as valid way to participate in the challenge is to just enjoy on the sidelines. You don't have to make the maps; you can just admire the maps and or write a blog post or something. Just as it's also fine. So and although I mentioned I work with open source, I wanted to challenge to be open to everyone. So I'm not saying that, oh no, you can't use that tool or you can't use that data, but um, I wanted to show with the challenge what kind of vast community the geospatial and the cartographic community is. People approach this from so many different angles. Someone working with um, let's say raster data day in day out, they have a slightly different outlook on things than someone working with 3D data or someone working with uh, marine biology. But you can almost interpret the challenges from your own angle, no matter what you do. So things grew in 2019, and then further in 2020. So in 2020 there were more than 7,000 maps made by more than 1,000 people in more than 70 countries, speaking more than 30 languages. So one thing I'm really proud of is that challenge has been global from the very start, and people are doing it around the world. And one really cool thing is that when you follow the Twitter feed, you can see like the time zones. So for example, last year when I wake up, I have my coffee and then read Twitter. I saw that the people from New Zealand have already posted theirs. Then people start in Europe posting theirs, and then later on in the evening, in my evening, people in Americas post theirs. So that's really cool. Then more than 20,000 retweets and more than 100,000 likes were also pretty amazing stats. Um, what I've said many times is that the main idea of the challenge is to have fun and not to wear anyone out. The last thing I want to see happening, because I've said that doing all 30 maps is a huge task and it takes a lot of time. So I and many others prepare the maps in advance, collect some interesting data sets, because if you just start doing them daily, you don't have time for anything else. Because I did this poll on Twitter asking how much time people spend on average on the maps, and the results were pretty amazing. Most people spend more than 2 hours on each map, and 70% spend more than 1 hour on average. So I don't know where these people are getting their time from. Not the same place I am, because my original idea when in the very beginning was that if the theme is something like lines, I'll just find an interesting dataset with lines, throw it in QGIS, and in 15 minutes I have a map that I post on Twitter. But let's say that I haven't followed that guideline also myself really strictly. That was just an idea. Then I don't have too many maps in my presentation, but here are all the maps at once from last year. Hyphen New collected did Twitter analytics based on with the hashtag. He collected all to his repo all the maps using the hashtag. He collected like stats, what are the most liked maps on each day, and here's a collage of all the maps from last year. And then David Friggins from New Zealand did more metadata analysis in 2019 and 2020 from the posts. So here are a few graphs from his excellent website, which also contain a gallery of the entries, of most of the entries. So here you can see, based on the theme, how the popularity goes down as people wear out during the month. But that's expected. It's easy to start with, but then when you have to collect ideas for 30 days, it becomes really surprisingly difficult, I would say. Then congratulations to all of you, because most mappers came from the States. Here are top 30 cartographer locations. So US, UK, France, Mexico are the top ones. So nothing too surprising there. It's interesting how something like, well, Mexico was something that people had like a local, and France was also something that they had a lot of like local activity around the challenge, and it was really cool to see. Only 5 people from Finland. Then the tools were quite interesting, because according to the stats that we were, or it was possible to collect stats, it seems like QGIS was by far the most popular tool, and then the our community embraced the challenge strongly, which was surprising and cool. Um, but my own hunch here is that people using QGIS like to tell more that they are using QGIS than, for example, ArcGIS, because then you're more likely to maybe share your processes too, and also this might be biased in a way because I myself I'm really active in the QGIS community, and that might lead to the fact that many people like with whom I'm connected on Twitter started to do the challenge also. I don't know, but anyhow, interesting. And 7 people apparently made maps also with PowerPoint. But one interesting aspect is also that how the challenge has grown organically. So it's not only happening on Twitter anymore, and this is a reason why it's hard to collect exact stats, because there are more than 1,500 posts on Instagram using the hashtag. There are people posting maps during November in um, on LinkedIn, on closed Facebook groups, on Reddit. So people are doing it in different places. People have in some organizations. I've heard that they do internal 30-day map challenges. So it's really interesting to see how it has evolved to what it has evolved. One example of a more overkill approaches was one from Alexander Kmoch, who is a research fellow in Tartu University, Estonia. He did all the 30-day maps, all the maps last year using Python, and he wrote a Python notebook for each of his entries with the data analysis process and the visualization. And he has made a website of his entries, and he did a talk on the GeoPython Conf too. There are a few others who have done like similar tutorials on every entry, and they are really. I can't imagine how someone has has the time and the effort, but I'm amazed. I'm a consultant, so I like to think numbers. Um, so I was just discussing the other day on like a theoretical approach on how much is it worth, the challenge. So if we try to put things into numbers, and it's 7,000 maps, roughly a few hours per map, because 7,000 doesn't contain all the maps, and 2 hours is then a bit maybe above average. I don't know, but let's assume that with all the metadata collection, blog posts, Twitter bots that people have been building, let's assume that it's around 15,000 hours of effort. And then if we calculate it with the average wage of a cartographer, found it on Google. I don't know how accurate it is if you make more or less, but this leads to roughly $500,000 USD, which is amazing if we think of this gives some idea of the scale of how it has grown in the last 2 years, and interesting to see to what it grows. I didn't take too many maps to my presentation, but a few examples, two very different examples of entries from last year. So this is my own map from day 3. I did a style in QGIS called Klimt, which like modifies the geometries and uses a set color palette, and I visualized the buildings in San Francisco using that. So I wanted to bring this here because I think this highlights like the knowledge sharing aspect of the challenge. Then a very different approach from Twitter. One of my favorite inputs to the challenge was the whole theme of non-GIS, non-GIS, or non-computer maps was my favorite. This is carrot production in France, shown in carrots. Then, as I'm recording this, just today I announced the challenges for 21. They're mostly the same. Uh, Biggest changes are that I've added a few data challenges. So on day 5, 13, and 23, the idea is to work on a common data set, OpenStreetMap, Natural Earth, or Global Human Settlement Layer, rather than a theme. So we'll see how that goes. And the last day I've added a thing called meta mapping day, where the idea is to collect your results that you've done on the 29 days, or then to uh, write a blog post on one of the entries or something like that. Do like the meta work of the challenge that you've done. So really hoping to see what happens in 21. Hoping that the challenge will grow further, hoping to see that there are it inspires new mappers to come along, and hopefully we'll see even more participants from the US. But thanks a lot. Maybe next time I'm there also in person, hopefully. But if you want to ask anything about the challenge or have a comment or something, you can reach me there or later on Slack. Thanks a lot.